What's the difference between a cesarean section and a cesarean birth? How can you make a cesarean be a family-centered experience that actually preserves your choices for any future pregnancies? Hi, I'm Melissa Evans. I've been a childbirth educator, doula, and then some since 2004, and I know how important it is for families to have quality childbirth classes. They're also hard on schedules and budgets, so here I am offering my classes for free. Please know that I am not a medical professional nor a lawyer, so do talk things over with a professional that you trust and use common sense. First, let's look at the words. Some people don't like to use the term cesarean section because it feels too surgical. Well, a cesarean section is in fact surgical, and calling it a cesarean birth doesn't technically change that, but it does have a much more positive connotation. And I get it. I understand the importance of words. I also have a hard time with both of them because sometimes cesarean section is the right word. My first birth was a section. It was traumatic for myself, for my husband, for my son, and it was nothing that I want anyone else to repeat. It's a good chunk of the reason why I do what I do. So when people call it a cesarean birth and it just sugarcoats everything, I have to admit it kind of ticks me off. But that being said, I want any of my clients, any of my students, if they end up in the OR, to have a cesarean birth. So that's what this class is for. For the sake of simplicity, I'm simply going to call it a cesarean, because I think the only person who gets to label it as a section or a birth is the person who experiences it. Did she feel empowered, like she got to make choices and it was necessary, even if it was maybe not what she wanted? Or did she feel railroaded like a slab of meat and not treated with the respect that she deserved? Okay, well then that might have an impact on what she calls it. It's always the birth of the baby. But mom's experience matters too, gosh darn it. There are times when cesareans are life-saving and wanted or needed, and we are so grateful for the technology. That being said, this is major abdominal surgery, and perhaps something that shouldn't be taken quite as lightly as we do here in the United States. Here's a non-graphic example of what is involved. Each layer of felt represents a different part of mom's body. So, let's say baby is footling breech on my shoulder for, simplicity's sake. But first, the surgeon, the obstetrician, who are by definition surgeons, must go through mom's skin. And then there is a layer of fat, and I don't care how healthy and fit you are, there should be a layer of fat. That's normal. And then we have the actual abdominal muscles that need to be parted. And then there's the peritoneum. This is kind of like the silver skin on your steak. It keeps everything together. And then we can finally get to the uterus itself. And then there's the amniotic sac. And then we can get to the baby. Keep in mind that all of these layers, with the exception of the amniotic sac, need to go through a healing process. Again, we are super grateful for this technology when it's used to save lives. And even if it's simply saving mom's sanity, we get that too. However, the World Health Organization recommends a cesarean rate between 10 and 15%. The United States is about 33%. So we are 2 to 3 times higher than the global recommendation. If we go below that 10%, we increase risk. We are missing moms and babies that could have been saved that weren't. And when we go above that 15%, then the risks are starting to outweigh those potential benefits. There is a limit to the return on investment, one might say. Unfortunately, with our very high cesarean rate, we also have a very high infant and maternal mortality rate compared to other industrialized nations. There's a link to the number in the description. More does not always mean better. Pop quiz! What is your care provider cesarean rate? Because that is your chance of having an operative birth. Understanding that a cesarean is commonly the last in a cascade of interventions. So the choices and normal operating procedures of the care provider do have an impact on what interventions they like to introduce and how they roll. So once again, you're going to hear me say that your choice in care providers is really important. I'm not messing around with this one. With all that being said, here are 10 things you can do to have a cesarean be a more family-centered experience. Dr. Michelle's book, The Cesarean, talks about 3 types of cesareans: the planned no labor, the in-labor emergency, and the in-labor planned. The third being a more unusual but perhaps gentler choice. Number 2, you have some control over the environment. Do you want some special music playing? Would you like your care providers to not be talking about golf games and rather be focused on you and including you in the experience? Number 3 is the potential to watch the birth of your baby. Nobody wants to see the actual incision, the actual surgery. But watching your baby be born coming out of you with a mirror or dropping the drape or perhaps even a clear drape can be a really nice option. Speaking from my experience with my first cesarean, one of the hardest things was I had no idea he was born. I was pregnant forever, and then I was in labor forever, and then I was on the table and they were numbing me, and I didn't even realize they had started the surgery. Nobody had told me anything. I was kind of aware when Spencer was born because I felt an emptiness, but there was no connection. My brain, my body, nothing really knew that I had given birth. And that made the first postpartum weeks really hard. I specifically remember the pediatrician coming in asking about a particular procedure that he was thinking about, and I had the thought, why are you asking me? Oh yeah, I'm his mom. My brain had not quite gotten the message. I didn't feel it, I didn't see it, I didn't hear it, nothing. So this is purely biased just on my experience, and it was part of the reason it wasn't so great. So if I can avoid anyone else that pain, all the better. If I had at least been able to see him be born, I'd like to think that my brain could have gotten around that. This is still a birth and it can be magical. Yeah, you can take pictures. And partner, if you, well, mom, you're not going to be taking pictures. You're very much going to be lying down, and that's okay. That's your job, and that's a big, big, big job. But partners, if you don't want to take pictures, ask the anesthesiologist. They are typically happy to help. Something else you might be able to consider is delayed cord clamping. Probably not 2 minutes to an hour like you could for a vaginal birth, but even 30 seconds of waiting for this to finish its job can do a lot of good. Number 6 is double suturing of the uterus. This helps the muscle heal better to ensure your better chance of a vaginal birth after cesarean, or VBAC for future births. Most care providers will do this by default, so it shouldn't be too much of a hassle to ask them. Number 7 sounds a little bit crazy, but hear me out. When babies are born through the birth canal, they get all of mom's vaginal beneficial bacteria, all of that good flora on their skin. And that actually helps to populate their gut flora. Health does in fact begin in the gut. Having the proper flora helps with all kinds of things in life. Well, if baby's not going that route, then some care providers are willing to use some cotton to swab mom and then to apply it to baby's face. I know it sounds kind of gross, and I'm sorry, but it is a really nice way to get some of those benefits of a vaginal birth, even if that isn't an option, to help ensure baby's long-term gut health. Assuming everyone is okay, you can request to breastfeed right there in the operating room. You will need an extra set of hands because feeling and balance are going to be an issue. But if everyone's doing well, there's no need to make that wait an hour. We can still use that golden hour when baby is ready for it. Having a doula can also be really nice. It will very much depend upon your birthplace and especially the anesthesiologist if the doula will be allowed in the operating room. Typically, it is common practice, at least in our local hospitals, that only one support person is allowed back. And of course, that's going to be partner. However, it is very common for partner to take baby and go to the nursery, and sometimes even allow the doula to go back and join mom, so that mom's never stuck alone. If having the doula with you is really important, make sure you talk to the anesthesiologist about that, because the doula can't. That will have to be you speaking up and voicing your wishes. Number 10 is a concept called a gentle cesarean. It's where the obstetrician literally tries to mimic a vaginal birth with the slowness and the squeezing through the incision instead, to help acclimate baby so that it's kind of more what baby was expecting. This clearly isn't an option if there is an emergency and baby needs to be out right now. But if things are going relatively well, then this might be something to consider. I've even heard stories of moms being able to reach down through the, no drape blocking them and helping birth their own babies, much like moms are able to do with a vaginal birth. There's a link down in the description. If this is a route that you need to go, please talk to your care provider. Keep this as gentle and magical as you can. There you go. I know many clients of mine prefer to avoid a cesarean unless it's absolutely required. And even if it is, we can make this be a pleasant, happy experience and still maintain our choices for a vaginal birth next time. And if a cesarean is what you actually want and choose, then make it yours. Make this your family's experience. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'm going to be posting new classes every week, and I don't want you to miss out. Until next time, know your options and own your birth.